Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton. In this episode of the State of the Program, brought to you by Adam Lowy, we're going to be talking about the next phase. What I mean by the next phase, it's really simple. Texas, this is National Signing Day today, the final one of the season. So Texas did add Elijah Ali, a defensive lineman. They announced that earlier this morning. Defensive lineman out of Southern California becomes the 24th and we believe final commitment for this recruiting class. Texas has also brought in 19 guys from the portal. So roster construction, Gerry and Rod, as we know it, is at least 95 to 99% done. I mean, who Texas is going to have for spring ball and who they're going to have for the season, almost all of them are here. They're ready to go. So what is the next phase of this team? What do they need to work on this spring? Do they need to develop philosophical changes, strategy changes, team building, all of those things? Rod, I'm going to let you go first. What is one of the things you think is the next phase of this team now as we go forward coming off this signing day?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you can approach that from a lot of different ways. From a player perspective, I would, if I was a player leader on this team, I would be very I'd be very upset. I'd probably be troubled by the penalty situation last season. I don't know how, as a leader, I don't know how you would approach it in the offseason in terms of trying to make sure you have a more disciplined team and trying to come up with solutions for that. It's probably just more about focus. But being 130th and 132nd in penalty yards, that I would think would be something that Texas players, leadership needs to address. I'm sure the coaches are going to handle from a coaching perspective during the spring. They'll probably implement certain things in practice to make sure that they're addressing the discipline issues and trying to make sure that they're a more disciplined team and they have less of the penalties during the game. I can almost guarantee they're going to do something different than they did last year, because that's just smart coaching, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. They will change it up. Especially with all the new faces. But I think that's something that the players and the coaches have to have top of mind this offseason. And that undisciplined nature, guys, it did carry over into other parts of the game. I think in the secondary, we didn't have a lot of busted coverages last year. I busted coverages this year. Even though you had some veterans back there in the secondary, I think that's one example of it. But I think offensive line play was also something that showed, the kind of the undisciplined nature of the team. Even Colin Simmons, one of your best players, I think he had 8 penalties on the season as well. So I think ultimately, overall, all the entire team should be held accountable, the leadership as well, coaches as well, and that should be something that should be a main priority and goal for this team this offseason.
So next phase for you, installing a different level of discipline.
Yes.
Improving is what you're saying.
Yep.
I get that. And I would say this, one of the things, and I'll pitch this to Gerry next. One of the things last offseason that we all were talking about is they've got to improve in red zone. Period, point blank, got to improve red zone percentage. They did that. So they can take these things that they've got to get better at and push them into the next year and actually improve if with concerted effort. Gerry, outside of penalties and discipline, some of the things that you're looking forward to this next phase of Texas football over the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's not talked about. It's very rarely talked about in college athletics. It's talked about a lot in high school athletics, but team building is needed in now modern college football. Because again, I mean, when all's said and done, when everybody gets in this summer, 43 newcomers, more than half of an 85-man scholarship team, and which is now going to go to 105, has turned over. Well, those guys have to get to know each other. People have to get to know each other. People have to learn to like to spend time with each other so they can have each other's back on Saturday on the road in Missouri in the fourth quarter, in Tennessee against Ohio State in game 2. There's no time for team building anymore. It's now. It starts when these guys start getting on campus. So that's really, to Rod's point, it goes to the leadership of this team. Somebody needs to be getting all these guys together, whether it's your offensive guys, whether it's your defensive guys, and it's your freshmen that aren't even going to be part of playing on Saturdays, but they're all integral in your locker room and your practices and your season. There needs to be some real attention to detail here with building your team, not the team we see on Saturday on the field, but the team we don't see.
Yep.
Because that's crucial in college sports now. I can't imagine how hard it is to be a college football coaching staff and keep that many new guys on the same page all the time. So that comes on leadership to me, guys. And somebody needs to be pulling everybody together, getting to know each other, because the only way you're going to have each other's back is if you actually know who you're having the back of. If you don't know, it's just a name on a jersey, that's not the same.
Yep.
I agree with that in the camaraderie. And it's almost part of that team building is you learn who you can rely on, how they react to certain situations. And that plays a role when you are at Missouri. Yep. I mean, I agree with that. All right, I've got a couple more that I want to talk to y'all about. But before we do, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Stay of the program every week, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, and think you might be due compensation, make sure you reach out to Adam and his team over at loweylawfirm.com, loweylawfirm.com. Anywhere in the state of Texas, make sure you reach out to them. They'll be able to help you out. Also want to say thank you to Adam for not only sponsoring On Texas Football, but also some of the stuff he does with the University of Texas as well as supporting the athletic programs. Rod and Gerry, the two other pieces that I wanted to mention and get y'all's thinking on this from a 2026 perspective. Like, what are some of the philosophical changes that need to be made or are going to be made? Some of that, like almost strategic and mindset based on Will Muschamp.
Yep.
Give you an example on that. Is it, hey, we're going to be more big play offense in 2026 since we've got Cam Coleman and we got these two home run hitting running backs now, right? And then developmentally, I think this next phase of college football is you have these different levels of players coming in, whether they're freshmen that aren't, I want to say this the right way, but they're not the bluest of blue chips, right? How do you develop that roster piece vis-a-vis how you develop the rest of the roster? So I want to talk about two things there: philosophical differences and developmental differences, how you develop the whole team. Rod, I'm going to start with you on philosophical differences this year versus a year ago and what that phase looks like for maybe Will Muschamp. Start there if you don't mind.
I think ultimately Texas Sark wants to be a more, or at least known for being a more tough, physical, and aggressive team. Those three, and we were talking to Vic Schaefer about that, right, Gerry? And he said, man, no matter what team, no matter what sport, if somebody describes your team as tough, physical, and aggressive, as a coach, you're going to be proud of that. They're tough, they're physical, and aggressive. And a lot of those things don't have anything to do with talent. Crazy thing. You can be tough, physical, and aggressive, and not necessarily be the most talented group. That's just a mindset, right? That's a mindset. And also, I think scheme can help promote those things.
Yes.
And how aggressive your mentality is as a play caller. I think that's kind of the Muschamp thing. I think Sark wanted his kind of starting with the defense, and we can have that on offense too. But I think starting with the defense, he wants a defense that's going to be tougher, more physical, and more aggressive. There's no doubt. Muschamp's defenses fit all of those things. Although PK was moving in that direction, all the numbers pointed to increased, metrics in aggression and blitz rate and man rate and all that. Just not aggressive enough. So I do think that's a big part. I think Sark wants to be known for those three things. And has a Sark team been known for that? Sark's had good teams, but I don't know if his teams have been known for being tough, physical, and aggressive. And I think he's like, in the SEC, if I'm going to win this damn thing, those teams who win it, they're all considered tough, physical, and aggressive. We got talent. We can go talent for talent with everybody else in the SEC. Ain't no doubt about that. But with the mentality is what needs to shift. The Texas needs to have that tough, physical, and aggressiveness. So shout out to Vic Schaefer because he got me. I can't stop thinking about that. I'm like, Sark, that's what Sark wants. Sark wants tough, physical, and aggressive. And like I said, doesn't necessarily have to do with talent. And talent's not your issue there. Another thing, to your point, Bobby made earlier about they want to generate more explosive plays, there's no doubt Sark wants to get back there. You were top 10 explosive plays, 20-plus yards or more in 2023 and in 2024. That was not the case in 2025. I think Sark wants to get back to being one of the most explosive offenses in the country. You have the talent for that. But here's where he comes into play there. Your offense has gotten less diverse since you've been here. Right? When Sark first got here, he was throwing everything out there. Wildcat, pony package, 31 personnel, 6-0 line package. You're just mixing it up all the time. And have you noticed last year?
Yeah.
Any of that.
It felt like he had to go back to the basics, perhaps because the offensive line maybe was
Hey, that's fair, Bobby, because I don't know why. And I don't think he likes. I think Sark has stated the quote. I got the quote in my phone. He said, the more we can do really well, the tougher we are to defend. He said that like 2022. And I was like, yeah, that's my coach. I like that. Yeah, let's try to get more diverse. And because trust me, it's tough for a defense to have to prepare for all of those different alterations and variations throughout the week. You can't. You literally don't have the time to do it. That's the beauty in being such a diverse offense. And the NFL kind of reflects that. But anyway, I digress. Sark has gotten less diverse. At least last year, that was the least diverse offense. You're looking at personnel groupings and you're looking at exotic packages that Sark's had here in Texas. I don't think he likes that. And I think now he has so much talent, Cam Coleman, Raleek Brown, and Hollywood Smothers, and of course, Ryan Wingo, the guys he still inherited, that now he feels like they almost work as a muse to boost his creativity and innovation. And I think now you're going to get that back. But that's part of the reason that your offenses were really explosive, is that they were tough to defend all those variations and alterations you had.
Gerry, what do you think about what Rod's talking about there as far as, developing a philosophical difference, not just tough, aggressive, but also the change in a philosophy from a defensive perspective, as well as a variety somewhat missing on offense? What are you thinking?
Well, the history of the SEC tells you that tough, physical, aggressive. I mean, whether that's your front, whether that's your backers, whether that's your entire team and your run game inside, there's a commonality for the teams that win in the SEC over, the last 25 years. I mean, there's always an outlier. Anybody could find over 25 years an outlier. Nothing's at rarely 100%. Mm-hmm. But if you look, it's going to be in the 90s percentile. SEC of how you win the league and how you rise to the top of this league. And look, Sark coached under Saban. I mean, Kirby Smart coached under Saban, took that to Georgia. I think Sark is now with Will Muschamp is going into year 3 in the SEC is trying to get to where that Kirby is, but in a different way with his offensive way. Around a Will Muschamp coach defense. So I think this is one of the things that is like when Rod was talking about PK wasn't really a loud guy. We've all been to the practice, open media windows. You wouldn't hear him. You can't change who you are. Sark can get on guys, but he can't change who he is. Else then you become not genuine and your players say, whoa. I've known you since I was 17. That's not how you truly are. Will Muschamp, a player on offense can hear Will Muschamp barking loud on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to look over there. Yep. And it's those things. So Sark doesn't have to try to change who he is because you can't fake it with kids anymore. You can look everything up on YouTube. Every interview Sark's ever done or any coach has ever done. Mm-hmm. But how do you bring that into your program? Well, you do that with a Will Muschamp while also changing your defensive philosophy. But I think Muschamp's voice and how that voice carries and the intensity of that voice is going to have meaning on both sides of the ball with this team. I think that is a big part of some outside the X's and O's of the philosophical part that is changing within Texas right now. And it's also a different accountability, I think, on the defensive side of the ball, and that can carry over because that's just going to be a different level of communication and the way communication's handled and team meetings are handled and one-on-one meetings are handled. So he's just got that strong voice presence to him, and that voice can carry across 2 football fields when it needs to.
I want to stick with you here and talk about development of players. Like that's what one of the next phases is about too. As you turn your focus, you got your roster constructed. They're in winter conditioning now. hitting the field every other day, doing that sort of stuff. Gerry, what are some of the developmental pieces? Like they need to develop another outside pass rusher. Do they need the young guys and get their body armor ready? What are some of those things, in your opinion?
I think, the pass rusher opposite Colin Simmons, if they're in a 3-4 overhangs, I think they got to decide what Brad Spence is early in spring. I think they got to decide what he is, because last year I think it was edge, then he ended up playing off-ball linebacker, but now you have a new scheme, and I think Muschamp's going to decide what he is for him and how that plays into everything else on his defense, because he's got to have that pass rusher consistently opposite Colin Simmons, I think. And there's two different ways to do it. Obviously, Zena can in a 4-man front. But when you're in a 3-man front, who's that guy going to be opposite Colin Simmons? Lance Jackson's a 5. Zena's probably more of a 5. So who's going to be that other outside backer that can get after it and can also hold the point of attack? I'm thinking that's Brad Spence, but I think it's up to Muschamp to decide what he's got to be. And I think, look, Ian Giffard, I mean, we'll probably do a video later on about guys who need to have great springs or camps with Torrey Becton leading into spring football. But Ian Giffard, look, he played 424 snaps at 385 pounds at Arkansas last year. That's amazing athletic stamina when you think about it. But ideally, you want him to be 360. You want to be 355, 360. So I think that is going to be kind of Torrey Becton's big project here the next few weeks and until August is, all right, what's our plan to get him to 355, 360 pounds so we can maximize what he can do in year 3 of college football.
Rod, what about you? Anything developmental wise or positional wise that you're kind of circling right now?
Well, I know it's not necessarily specific position wise, but in terms of an element that I know Tech kind of goes back to the tough, physical, aggressive thing that we were talking about. I do think, Texas, they want that power element in the run game. And, maybe going back to what Gerry said, maybe that is for those young, whoever is not Raleek Brown and not Hollywood Smothers in that running back room, and maybe it's a young Derek Cooper, maybe adding some mass and armor to that guy to see if, hey, can he be that power element? Now, Texas never sacrifices speed, so they'll never put too much mass on a player to slow him down. But the power element of the running game is something that I think Texas during this offseason and during the spring, they need to figure out what their identity is in those power situations. That's goal line and that short yardage. And I think this offense is going to remind people, a lot of people, that 2024 offense with Jaden Blue in the backfield, Trey Wisner, and what were one of your issues that you kept running into that season? Because your bread and butter going to be the outside zone, and these guys, they're going to be good at it. Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, they're going to be good running that outside zone. They are, because they're perfectly suited for it. And this offensive line is really athletic, and it's going to be an athletic offensive line that's able to hit that outside zone. But when you run up into the three or four teams, that's going to be able to stop it, and it's going to happen. Just like in 2024, Ohio State, Georgia, Arizona State. When they stop it, where do you pivot? Where's your power pivot to be able to play bully ball and run downhill on a team? Maybe they don't need. Maybe Arch Manning's going to be so damn good they won't need it. you should be ready for that situation, because right now that's something your offense does not have. You don't really have that. That's one thing you don't have a power element really that we can identify. And I think you develop, that's an identity, that's a mentality. And like I said, you go look at just random example here. The Seattle Seahawks. Do you know that they have a burner? They call it a burner package. They put like their tight end at the Wildcat on short yards and goal line situations. Yeah. And then that's their power identity. Like, no, we got to do this. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be our identity. Texas needs, they used to have that in certain situations. Hell, they had the Savion Red package and the Red Cat, and they had the
Roschon Johnson.
So I'm not saying they got to be that extreme with it. I'm saying put Nick Townsend back there as a Wildcat, but that's not a bad idea.
I am.
but I'm just saying, develop an identity of something you're really good at in those situations. And Texas hadn't really had that. And so I would like maybe this offseason for them to see if they can start developing that on top of some of the other things we talked about.
Some power run.
You need.
So here's the question: is Michael Masunas the most underrated addition to this team?
The tight end for Michigan State
as a blocker. What can he add that maybe you missed from a blocking standpoint? You could use him as an H-back sniffer to lead the way from time to time.
Yep. Yep.
Or-
Maybe that's the power.
him.
Maybe it's Nick
Let him
Townsend
fix
and your tight ends. Your tight ends are now finally physical blockers. Maybe that's something you hadn't had since Sark's been like, I don't know. Maybe that's it. Good point, Jerry.
All right. Good stuff, guys. I think the last thing I want to bring up, this is for Rod. You've been part of winter conditioning, right?
Oh, yeah.
What are you as an athlete working on? I mean, what I know we're talking about grand scheme and how we look at Texas as a whole. What are the individual players thinking right now?
The individual players have their goals. I mean, like I said, I usually would depend on my weight. I wanted to lose weight, gain muscle. But ultimately, it's competition, right? I love to compete. So I went out there with my own goals, but I got a Roy Williams out there with me. I got a Quinn Jammer out there with me sometimes. I got a Nathan. I got some of the best athletes in the world. And I know they're highly touted. I'm going to go whip them in these off-season drills. That's kind of how my mindset always was. I'm going to beat them in off-season. And they had the same mindset about me. And that's what pushed us. So those off-season drills, to keep them becoming, just kind of boring and keep going through the motions, we went at it. Like I had to try, and I wanted to. Sometimes they had like 3 or 4 a day, and I was like, all right, so I got to find out which one Nathan Vasher going to. I got to find out which one Roy Williams going to. Are you going to the late one? I got a class there. All right, let me see what's going on that morning one, and because I got to have somebody, I got to have one of those guys to go up against. I got to beat them, and that's what you can, as a player, that competitive spirit. I call it a competitive sickness sometimes because it overwhelms you. They need to be in that mindset all the time, beating the best constantly. And you got the best that's alongside you. That's your brotherhood. So that's what keeps those off-season workouts at a fever pitch intensity, is that you guys are going at it. And it's not stuff you normally do. It got drills that Torrey Beckton. And this is how Torrey Beckton can help the discipline. I'm sure he's on it too. I'm sure Torrey Beckton's thinking about those penalties too. You guys, you're trying to reinvent your football character as somebody who is very disciplined about everything they do. And try to crystallize your focus. So if they say foot on the line, nope, hey, don't get past the line. If they say do the drill to this point, there's no lazy steps before that. And you wanna become a more disciplined athlete overall, whether that be getting there on time, whether it be getting up in the morning, making your bed. It sounds like ridiculous stuff. It does. But you'll be surprised how it carries over if you continue to do it consistently and transform your football character, being more disciplined. And I think that's a big part of what these young men can go through too. You were an undisciplined team. That's okay. You're still a good team. You won 10 games, but you're an undisciplined team. Where does that start and where does that improvement start? It starts with you becoming a more disciplined athlete, period. A more disciplined football player. And that starts even in the offseason. So be really strict and hard on yourself about getting there on time, about, running through the line, all those little tiny details. You should be really, really obsessed with them. And that will help you. I promise you, it'll carry over on the football field, that attention to detail and discipline.
I think that's a great point, Rod, because discipline starts before the season begins.
It does.
Oftentimes starts in the off-season work.
Yep.
Yeah. You are who you practice to be.
Yes.
That's life, I think. All right. Thanks again. That's going to do it. Next phase, now that roster construction is almost done, I think we went over it. Developmental, philosophical, discipline, camaraderie / team building, knowing who you can rely on, all those things on tap over the next month or so before we get into spring ball. All right. I want to say thank you one last time to our sponsor, Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, or automobile accident of any kind, make sure you reach out to Adam and his group, LowyLawFirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you might be due compensation. Again, that is LowyLawFirm.com. Thank you, Adam. More than 20 years experience helping injured Texans. All right. For Rod Babers, for Gerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchinson, this has been On Texas Football's State of the Program. Hook 'em horns.